Yes, and welcome back to another video. This one we're going to be showing the very basics of a VLOOKUP. If you've never used a VLOOKUP before, it's basically you got a value, you have maybe a table of data, and you need to, instead of combing through that whole data set, you want to quickly search through that and use Excel to do that. VLOOKUP is great for doing that. We're going to walk through a quick example, get you up and running real quick on kind of what a VLOOKUP does, and give you a couple different scenarios of that with a sample exercise at the end. So uh, the VLOOKUP formula has four parts to it. They're very simple and straightforward. We'll walk through a quick example here. So the first one, obviously a equal sign. VLOOKUP is a function, so you need to call it with an equal sign. And then there are three different inputs that you need to have. So when you do a VLOOKUP, you're going to specify the value that you want to look up, the table that you want to look through, and then the column where your answer exists. The last part is going to be a zero. That basically means we're looking for an exact match. Typically, most of the time, you're going to look for a zero. There are other circumstances, we won't get into it, where you'll put a one there, but that's for another video. So we're going to walk through a quick example of this and show you kind of a VLOOKUP in action. So we have a sample table here. We have a couple students, we have their birthday month, and then their GPA. Some very basic table here. And what we're trying to do is say for some reason, you needed to provide the GPAs of a couple different students. So say your boss gives you, hey, I need to look up a couple of these student GPAs, and they just give you your last name. So we're just going to make the assumption that there's no duplicate last names in our table, which looks like obviously it is. That's something you maybe have to check through. But to do this, we're just going to walk through real slowly of how to look up the VLOOKUP. So if we just look at Travers here, obviously Tom Travers is a 3.22 GPA. So that's exactly what we would want to return here. And then for Fall, Amber Fall would be 2.7, and then Shelly would be 2.55. So to do this, we're going to start with our first part of our VLOOKUP formula, the equal sign. As soon as we do that, we're just going to start typing VLOOKUP. You can either click on it or tab. It does the same thing. You can now see the different arguments that it's trying to accept. So lookup value, again, in cell B3, this is the value you want to look up. So we want to look up Travers. We're just going to click on Travers. We're going to do a comma. That's going to knock us to our table array. So again, this is the table that we want to look through. So this is obviously our table here. So we're just going to highlight this entire thing all the way down. We could grab the first name. I'll tell you that at the end, but we want our last name to be our first column here. Because we're going to drag this formula down, we do need to lock that table range so it doesn't move as we drag the formula. So to do that, we're just going to do an F4, do a comma. Column index is the column in your table range where the answer exists. So again, we have last name is the first column, birthday month is second column, GPA is the third column. This is going to take a numeric value. So in this case, GPA is our third column. So we're going to type in 3. We're going to do a comma. And then again, our last one is a 0. And that's, we're going to use, again, we're not going to get into that in this video. It's something to do with an approximate or an exact match. But just for this sake of purpose, we're just going to do 0. Once we get there, hit enter. You get 3.22. What we can do is we can basically drag that down, and we're just going to reformat that. And you can see we got 2.7 and 2.55. So that's a very simple way to get introduced to a VLOOKUP. One caveat that I will, you may have caught it when I was going through it, is when I did the table range, with a VLOOKUP, it demands that the column that you're looking up, so in this case, last name, has to be the leftmost column in your table range. If we did first name instead, we would have gotten errors here. You have to have your first column has to be the column that you're looking up here. Again, another thing to note too is the column that you're looking up, most of the time it's best to have it to the right of your lookup column. Otherwise, it does look a little wonky. So there are a couple caveats to the VLOOKUP. There is an index match that we'll get into in a future video that is a little bit more optimized way to look it up, but a VLOOKUP is a very, very powerful and foundational concept within Excel. So I hope this video at least introduced you to the four main parts of a VLOOKUP formula. So instead of having to sift through a bunch of different tables, you can quickly extract the information you need and get on with your day.